Okay, so just reconvene the meeting, and just need to go to the declarations of interest, if there's any declarations of interest, Jim.
I need to declare an interest. I don't think it's significant enough to withdraw, and it's the expenditure options, and it's number 26. I am a private landlord.
Yeah. Anyone else? No, that's fine. So we'll go to item 2, which is financial strategy, setting the 25-26 revenue budget. That's Joe.
Morning, members. The report begins by noting the financial challenges that heads of service and budget holders have grappled with during this year, and where costs, which seem as though they are forever rising, and demand for our services, which appear to outpace our collective efforts to control it, have placed significant pressures on our services and on our budgets, and these pressures will remain as we go into next year and beyond. The report highlights the need to identify expenditure reduction measures or cuts of £8.75 million to balance the budget next year. In allocating the budget gap, you have continued to offer protection to those services most valued by your communities, recognising their importance to the delivery of the Council's strategic plan. The financial settlement was published by the Scottish Government in December, and it was more positive than expected and contained additional grant funding which exceeded our budget assumptions. Across local government, the settlement contained an additional £289 million, and our share of that is £6.6 million. The longer-term outlook for grant funding does show further increases beyond 2025-26. However, these will essentially be cancelled out by the impact of rising inflation and rising costs. Paragraph 24 provides members with details of the changes to the costs of employers' national insurance from 1st of April next year, and we will see our pay bill increase by around £6 million as a result. The Council will receive funding of £3.3 million out with the settlement to help us with the national insurance costs, but that still leaves a pressure of £2.750 million. In the report for approval, it asks to use £2.75 million from the uncommitted £6.6 million so that we can start next year with employee budgets that are able to absorb this new cost. Paragraph 29 sets the scene for teacher numbers and the condition that has been attached to the settlement requiring councils to maintain their September 2025 teacher number full-time equivalent figure at a level that is greater than or equal to the September 23 teacher FTE figure. £186.5 million is contained within the settlement to support this condition, but should a council be unable to meet the teacher number requirement, then a financial sanction will likely be applied in year during 2025-26. As members are aware, our school-age population is falling relative to the rest of Scotland, and while the Scottish Government has intimated that certain conditions or mitigations could be applied, the requirement to maintain teacher numbers has created a substantial risk to the Council and to the education budget in particular, given that any sanction would be charged against this budget in year. Paragraphs 35 through to 63 provides information on a range of matters and show how the budget seeks to build on earlier successful initiatives while seeking approval to introduce new measures and resources to support speech and language interventions, resource the anti-poverty and inequality strategy, provide additional financial resource to support jobs and training, as well as introducing a long-term plan to support wellbeing. The report also recognises the concerns around community safety and enforcement expressed previously by members and more recently by stakeholders at budget engagement events, noting that a review will be undertaken during this 2025 and that in advance of the review concluding, £700,000 will be set aside to support any measures that may be required. The budget modelling assumptions begin on paragraph 64 and run through to paragraph 86. And they provide a range of information, including our assumptions on pay uplifts, contract inflation, and energy costs. Para 78 contains the proposed allocation to the Integration Joint Board, with uplifts aligned to the requirements of the integration scheme. It's important to highlight that while the allocation to the IJB is substantial, rising demand, higher costs, and the significant impact of employers' national insurance costs on services that are externally commissioned by the IJB mean that 2025-26 will be a really challenging year for the board and for our health and social care partnership. And as such, it's important that we continue to provide support wherever possible. This is why the report makes arrangements for a specific direction to be provided to the Council, so that members here are aware of the challenges the Integration Joint Board is facing, the decisions that will be made to align costs to the available resource by the board, and the resultant decisions and approvals that will flow back to the Council for members to take. As mentioned earlier, the settlement contains additional funding of £6.6 million in order to support services and remove as much pressure from them as possible. The budget proposes that the reduction in grant-aided expenditure, noted at paragraph 89, and the unfunded part of employers' national insurance at paragraph 95 are applied against the £6.6 million, leaving £1.6 million available. Members, the report seeks to present a balanced budget without the need to use reserves, but a budget nonetheless that includes expenditure reductions or cuts of £8.75 million. These are contained at Appendix 1, and Cabinet is asked to recommend to Council that these are accepted. Cabinet is also asked to recommend to Council that the Council tax levy for next year is uplifted by 8% in order to fund our services. Indicative budget allocations for our services are attached at paragraph 101, and all possible measures have been taken to maximise service budgets wherever possible. However, even with these financial supports, we know that while many of the recovery plan actions taken during the year are complete, others continue to be progressed, and some will see reports coming to members for consideration and approval in the coming weeks. These reports, which include additional support needs learning transport, as well as development of options contained within the 2 iterations of the Integration Joint Board Recovery Plan, will seek to reduce financial pressures, but they will be particularly challenging for members given the value you place on our services. Indeed, that value and pride is shared by chief officers who have built and led services over many years, and also by our staff who work daily to deliver them. However, put simply, we do not have enough resource to do all the things the Council used to do, or indeed would like to do. But a forward-looking, pragmatic and financially solvent Council takes steps to protect itself from the financial challenges it faces, and this report attempts to do that, to maximise the available resource that our services have at their disposal next year, but recognising that in the coming months, difficult options will be placed before you, all of them based on best professional advice, options which will be challenging, but nonetheless will safeguard and protect the Council into the future. Chair, paragraph 2 on page 3 asks Cabinet to recommend a series of recommendations for Council tomorrow, and I'm happy to stop there and take any questions.
Thanks, Joe. And I think echoing your comments there, it's been a really difficult year, extraordinarily difficult year with the pressures that's been piled on the Council. As we see, you know, already when other councils are going with double figure increases in council tax, shows the absolute magnitude of the issue. And although there's real challenges within East Ayrshire, but thanks to the financial stewardship and the input from all the members around the board, and the fact that we've got recovery plans in place, it's not been as bad as some of our other authorities, but that's pretty cold comfort, because some of the cuts that are in front of us today are really stretching our communities and our staff to the limit, and it has indeed been a challenge. But most of these challenges in terms of contract inflation, whether it's the national insurance issue that we've had to bridge a gap to, that's added another 4% in the council tax. There's a lot of challenges there, and particularly to thank the officers and the members and the public for their contributions. like a normal procedure, my intention will be to know, but I know that members may have some points of clarification here on the recommendations, but normally address that. Most of my final intention would be from the administration to go through this tomorrow at the full council in terms of what the full package is, but happy to open it for clarification of some of the issues that are here. Jim.
Thank you, Leader, and echo those sentiments. I think it's harsh, it's stark, but I think we also need to take crisis what was in that paper about what faces us over the next couple of years as well, for not just this year, because we know we have even harder decisions to make over the next 2 years. We, the front-facing people that people communicate with and take the brunt of decisions that's made away for us as far as affordability goes and finances, but it's laid out in the papers for us, the harsh realities of what's coming over the next couple of years as well. I would normally leave everything until tomorrow, Leader, but there's a couple of things and I think issues in the paper for myself that I would need to bring. And one of them was around about the cost savings, and they have been realised for the toilets in Cumnock. I know that was delegated past the delegated authorities, and that was passed by this cabinet to put to delegated authorities. However, for that process was started last July, none of the ward members were aware of this coming until it arrived on our doorstep. My concerns over the agreement that was made, and I don't know what that agreement is, but it made headlines in the paper where we could have been left with no public toilets in Cumnock. Given the information that we all know around about demographics, the importance for me more than ever is that there's a public facility there. I'm prepared to sit on that now, but I'm putting my stamp on that where there is delegated authority. I think we need to know, every ward member needs to know when there is some of this contention in the loop as part of that process prior to coming to us. I think the only other thing, and that's the toilets and talking about in general, that facility that should be there for the public to use, where we have, I would say, a commitment to provide that. The only other thing was around about, and it comes again, I'll talk more on this tomorrow, around about the parking and Cumnock, where we had the issues back in 2019, I think, if anything. The circumstances around about with the refusal to go ahead with them in 19 maybe been exacerbated in some way, even they've got worse. But I'll leave that for the discussion for tomorrow, but it was just the main thing was around about the toilets.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Anybody else, Barry?
Thank you, Dougie. Hopefully you can hear me in the chamber. Yes, I mean, certainly more will be said tomorrow from the Labour group in terms of the budget. It is a stark situation when you look at the cuts that are coming, despite we know that the best settlement that has come since devolution to the Scottish Government. However, I note that there are some really difficult challenges ahead for us, and probably more so than we're even facing today. You know, grant aided expenditure, not something that trips off the tongue easily, but it's clearly not our friend here in East Ayrshire when you look at the impact that we are having as our population gets older, and those older people are living longer but with more health issues. That really doesn't get taken into account in terms of the grant aided expenditure, and I really do worry about the future as our population ages and our school age population declines, and it's something certainly I'm sure everybody around the cabinet table here today would want to take forward with Edinburgh to make sure that we are getting fair funding for our local authorities. You know, the teacher numbers, we are being held to ransom by the Scottish Government in relation to that. And you know, the fines that are there make it, you know, unpalatable for us to make any other decisions over those teacher numbers. We have some difficult decisions to make. We talked about ASN transport, Leader talked about that will need to come in the coming months. And you know, we absolutely need to be adults and grown up about those decisions as they come forward to us. We're willing to certainly do that as a Labour group. However, there are items within the proposals that we couldn't support and wouldn't support. But we can talk more about that tomorrow. And meanwhile, I'm content for the paper to go forward to Council. But we will come forward with amendments tomorrow, and I'm sure that will be the case from other groups and the administration too. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Bring in John McFadden.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the officers and all my fellow councillors for all the work that's been put into compiling this budget. It's been a very difficult time, as it has been most other years. Prices go up and the available money always tends to go down, so it's not to be unexpected. I'm content to let the paper go forward to the council as well tomorrow. I'm sure we will have some comments to put in. Obviously, we'd like to, push the Woodrow Park project forward as much as we can for the betterment of the people in the south. But yes, we'll make more comments tomorrow. But other than that, happy to go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think there's a kind of similarity there, but I think the challenge for us has been significant this year and the years ahead, and we can have that discussion tomorrow. I think Barry raises an important issue about grant-aided expenditure, and there has been a drift east across Scotland in terms of that, but the problems of rural depopulation and health, particularly in the west of Scotland, as we see in the challenges within our IGB, are not going down anyway. And I think there's an absolute conversation that needs to take place right across Scotland, just where the grant-aided expenditure goes to. We still have to manage decline, and in terms of looking at education, there's growth in parts of East Ayrshire, there's decline in others, and that gives us major headaches, and including organising teacher numbers that I think there's a need for government to recognise, and I think we can maybe work collaboratively and collectively together to make a case for some of the issues that are facing local authorities in the west of Scotland in particular that are experiencing decline at the moment. And it's in everyone's interest right across Scotland that the whole of the country flourishes, and we'll certainly press that ahead. Other comments like I'll reserve to tomorrow, but members, are there any other bits of clarification? Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. There's several elements in the expenditure reduction options obviously are going to have impact on our communities, such as the school crossing patrollers, the review of the greener community staff, impact on the bins and the cleanliness in the areas, parking charges, etc. Now, taking into account the landscape that Joe has set out, a lot of these are in the paper for review, but obviously the level of detail in the paper doesn't go into the time frames, etc. for these. So I'm just looking for clarification that following fuller discussion tomorrow, we will get that level of detail on each of these elements, and elected members will be fully briefed on the ones that get approved tomorrow.
And through your chair, happy to give that assurance as we go forward.
Okay, with that, I'm moving to, unless there's any, no, I'll move to note the recommendations, and I think that's all I need to tomorrow's full council. Okay. The next item is Simon Bell with the Capital Programme, Building a Future East Ayrshire Capital Investment Programme Review. Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This report provides an update on the Capital Investment Programme, which, as members are aware, is presented annually to Cabinet and also Council, along with the Revenue Budget and the Treasury Management Strategy. The opening paragraphs from 3 through to 25 provide some background to the scale of investment in our communities over the last 15 years, the significant levels of external funding that the Council has been successful in attracting, and the ongoing pressures on affordability due to construction inflation and the cost of borrowing. The principles and objectives of the asset management framework and its alignment with the Council's strategic priorities are set out from paragraph 6. Whilst these remain the basis for future investment, it's recognised that moving forward, a more focused approach is required to manage assets efficiently, prioritising capital spend to maximise the value of our existing properties. Paragraphs 30 onwards provide information on the review of the programme that's been undertaken and is presented in the same format as previously. Within the tables at the appendix, projects are grouped into green, yellow and amber categories, with green being projects at delivery stage and amber those at the earlier stages of development. The tables show each project's current financial projection, along with proposed amendments and investment profiling. The projects also align to four key strategic work streams: the learning estate, wellbeing, leisure and culture, economic growth and infrastructure. Within each work stream, the report sets out from paragraph 41 the positive progress across a range of projects at delivery stage, but also identifies some critical stage projects that face specific challenges. Within the learning estate, one specific highlights the Dunlop Early Childhood Centre, the Council's first passive house building, which was handed over last August. The St Sophia's Primary School project is progressing well on site and will be the first NRFIT certified school in the UK. Tenders are currently being prepared for significant investment at Comores Primary School, with works anticipated to start in the summer. An officer working group led by Education is currently undertaking a review of ASN provision across the authority in order to provide sustainable longer-term solutions, with investment at Willowbank identified as a priority. And a further report in relation to ASN will be presented to a future Cabinet for consideration. Critical stage projects within the learning estate include Doon Campus at paragraphs 49 to 64, where information is provided on the range of detailed surveys that were undertaken to gain a better understanding of the existing building condition. The most significant issue identified is the extent of asbestos within the two-storey teaching block. The Health and Safety Executive have reviewed the survey results and have given clear direction that the asbestos within this block must be removed and not re-encapsulated. Solutions for addressing this issue are significantly higher in cost than originally anticipated. Given the extent of asbestos removal works, it's been determined that the only economical solution is to construct a new extension to replace this block. The table at paragraph 61 details essential works that are required to the campus, amounting to £25 million. However, this would not allow for any internal improvements or alteration to existing areas within the single-storey school block or leisure centre, estimated at £8.5 million. Positive discussions are ongoing with Scottish Futures Trust around retaining Scottish Government LEAP Phase 2 revenue funding, which could be up to £16 million in net present value. However, a reduction in scope that has no improvements to the remaining learning environment may not be viewed favourably. It's therefore recommended to allocate an additional £8.5 million to the project, which would increase the Council's capital budget allocation from £25 to £33.5 million. Paragraphs 65 to 67 relate to Stuart Academy, where every opportunity has been taken to refine proposals to ensure that only essential scope is being delivered. However, cost estimates for the project are approximately £2.4 million over the current budget allocation. As previously reported to members, work is ongoing with development planning colleagues to ensure that developer contributions related to LDP2 housing growth are sought as a means of offsetting cost pressures. On this basis, it's therefore recommended to allocate an additional £2.4 million to the project. Similarly, with Laneshaw Primary School at paragraphs 68 to 70, it's anticipated that the medium to long-term impact of housing growth in the school role could also be supported through developer contributions. Concept proposals have started to be developed to extend and modernise the school, and for forward planning proposals, it's recommended that an additional £1.5 million is allocated to the project to provide an overall budget of £7 million. Further information on the wider needs of the learning estate will be presented to a future Cabinet as part of the annual Learning Estate Management Plan. Within the Wellbeing, Leisure and Culture workstream, a number of projects are progressing aligned to the recent Leisure and Culture Service Review. Works are well advanced on site with the refurbishment and extension of the former Galston Chambers building, and with the Galleon Centre, specialist consultants and a contractor are being commissioned through the UK Leisure Framework to develop and deliver the project. With the Civic Centre South building at paragraphs 86 to 93, as there's been no meaningful interest in the sale of the building, and given the significant costs of it remaining vacant, the building will be transferred to the Leisure Trust, with a new combined management and staffing moving in from the 1st of April. This will then provide an opportunity for the Leisure Trust to develop future plans to revitalise the building, including wider proposals for the Dower House and Dick Institute. To support external funding bids for Civic South, it's recommended to allocate £2 million of capital funding. An update on the Levelling Up funded Cultural Kilmarnock project is provided at paragraphs 95 to 97. Good progress has been made, with planning and listed building consent being granted in December, and positive discussions are ongoing with the UK Government seeking agreement to an extension to the March 2026 funding deadline. Tenders for Phase 1 external fabric works have been received and are currently being assessed. However, the project continues to face challenging financial conditions. It's proposed to provide a further update to Cabinet in the coming weeks once the tender assessment exercise has been concluded. Within economic growth, paragraphs 99 to 104 note the good progress being made with the Ayrshire Innovation Park project at Moorfield as part of the Ayrshire Growth Deal. Members will recall the detailed update presented to Cabinet in January. The project comprises both the Ayrshire Manufacturing Investment Corridor and the Ayrshire Engineering Park, designed to stimulate industry growth and attract inward investment. The tendering process for Phase 1 infrastructure works has commenced, and it's anticipated that works could start on site in the summer. Aligned to Kilmarnock Town Centre regeneration, following marketing, the Council received meaningful interest in both the White Tile Building and Civic Centre North. The White Tile Building has now been sold, releasing £1.5 million of allocated funding for other priorities. Civic North will initially be leased, with a sale to follow once the building has been redeveloped for office accommodation. The Kilmarnock Strategic Town Centre Group and Capital Strategic Group meet regularly to ensure that there's oversight and robust challenge to projects and that interdependencies are managed appropriately. These groups are further supported by a recently established internal working group for Kilmarnock Town Centre with the aim of maximising planned capital investment, both private and public, and to use this as a catalyst for the Council's regeneration ambitions. Positive progress is also being made with infrastructure projects detailed from paragraph 117, including Kilmarnock Bus Station, demolition of the multi-storey car park, and implementation of the Waste Services Review. Information on roads investment is provided at paragraphs 130 to 133, which also notes that the annual roads asset management plan will be presented to Cabinet in March. Paragraph 132 highlights the specific financial challenges that are facing in addressing road slips. Given the scale of required investment, alternative revenue funding or repairs and renewal allocations of up to £2 million will be considered to support these additional essential requirements and allow the Priority Bridge Improvement Programme for 25-26 to continue. Significant investment is also identified under the ongoing annual allocations that support the core operational areas of the Council services, ICT replacement programmes aligned to the digital strategy, refurbishment and component renewal to support our property management plan priorities, and energy efficiency carbon zero allocations to reduce our carbon footprint and energy costs. The annual property management plan will be presented to a future Cabinet, and to support the ongoing commitment to investment in our existing assets, it's proposed to reintroduce the successful Property Pledge initiative with an allocation of £1.2 million of revenue funding over the next 2 years. The recommendations within this report recognise the implications of the cap on Council borrowing and therefore aim to offset additional pressures from alternative funding sources. The financial implications are set out at paragraphs 151 to 154 and note that the overall capital borrowing for the programme remains within the approved Treasury management limits. Chair, I would refer members of Cabinet to the recommendations at paragraph 2 of the report and would be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Simon. Just a couple of comments. I don't think we can ignore some of the kind of contract inflation issues that are affecting some of capital programme right across the board, and we see that in doing academy in particular. But I think we need to press on and provide that community with a skill that's that where our pupils and our community can flourish down there. But just the point that we made about the way the grants are assessed, the challenges are no less in areas of population decline than they are in growth. In fact, as we've seen some of the projects there in ANIC, we do fortunately have a bit of money coming from developer contributions. But I mean, that's just I appreciate some of the good work that's went on there to bring that money in. Good to see some other projects there. Just comment just now in terms of the Civic Centre North and Civic Centre South with the Leisure Trust. That's very ambitious, and I think we really need to see some of the detail of that. It'd be really interesting. There's really help the footfall of the town and help business there with these two buildings that we currently own. It'd be good to see them being occupied. And who'd have thought we've got a buyer from the White Tail building right at the heart of King Street. That's good to see progress being made there, and we look forward to that building being occupied once again. I think despite the kind of challenges we've got in terms of the money that's available to us through the capital programme, we do make good progress here, and I think there's been some good work done here, but challenges remain, and just the worry is, Simon, that the costs continue to spiral, and I think I take this as the best estimate that we have just now. Have you any other concerns, just in terms of in that would add to inflation at the moment?
Thanks, Chair. I suppose, construction inflation and volatility in the marketplace has been excessive over the last few years, impact of COVID and war in Ukraine, cost of living, etc. We have seen, whilst it's still increasing, we have seen that it's starting to steady, and therefore projections around about future construction costs are a little bit, we can make these a little bit easier now. So there's a bit of confidence around about our future projections. It's all aligned around about ensuring that the scope of the project doesn't increase, and we make sure that we align essential scope to the development of the projects. So continue to monitor it as we go along, Chair.
Thanks, Simon. Barry, good to see you. I don't know where you appeared there, but
as if by magic. Simon, just a few things, and thank you for the briefing that you gave me prior to Cabinet in relation to some of the issues here. I think in terms of Doon Academy, for me, it's been a project that's been 10 years in the making. We're building a brand new school, then we were refurbing, now we're doing part new build, part refurb, potentially, depending on what the outcome of this decision is today and tomorrow. But I think the people of Doon Valley in particular need a bit of certainty around this, and I think they've had a lot of uncertainty. And you know, I know there are issues in relation to contract inflation. I think that there's no doubt, nobody can avoid it. But you know, I'm sure communities that are served by Doon Academy must be thinking, what's going on here? And I just want, if you can just confirm, you know, in terms of the programme, how long that's going to take. And I take it in terms of the engagement with staff, pupils, parents and carers, that we're going to make sure that we get as much information out to people on that programme, what's going to happen during this. The next point is in relation to Laneshaw Primary, and you know, whilst obviously welcome refurbishment works, I do recall that when this council approved the very last council meeting of the last term, our LDP2, you know, we were talking about a brand new school in Stewarton that, you know, developer contributions was ultimately going to fund. And I think it might be quite a hard sell for residents, existing residents in particular, in that area of Stewarton, who will be saying, well, we accepted hundreds of new houses, but we're not seeing a new school as a result of it. And I just think it's important that we get the messaging right as an authority, if that's the case, why that's the case. If you can just come back on a few comments there, Simon, thanks.
Thanks, through you, Chair. In relation to the Doon campus, we have already set up a range of consultation and engagement sessions that we intend to take forward, starting to progress the scope of the project through discussions with our education colleagues and through the school management team. In terms of the programme, the funding for Doon, as set out in the appendix of the report, shows that it'll probably be over 4 years, recognising that it is a significant refurbishment and there will be an element of moving pupils around the school to allow the works to be done. There is a significant amount of work to be put in place in terms of developing outline designs, detailed designs, statutory approvals and tendering before we can actually start meaningful construction works on site. But recognising that there is a need to show progress, we've already started looking at options to undertake early enabling works at Doon campus sooner rather than later. I would imagine that might be towards the end of this year, as again, these works themselves would need to be designed. But as I say, the overall kind of phasing of works would probably take about 4 years for the project. With Laneshaw Primary School, we've been working closely with our economic development and development planning colleagues to assess the impact of LDP to growth on school roles. And as the report sets out, it is now anticipated that the medium to long-term growth for Laneshaw Primary School could be addressed through an extension to the school. And we're, again, working closely with our planning colleagues to ensure that developer contributions are maximised to support these works. There really isn't the financial there isn't the finances available to build a new school up in Stewarton, and as I say, we feel we can address the pressures with the existing school through upgrading, refurbishment and extension.
Thanks, Simon. You know, it's a difficult. I understand. You know, the pressures that are on the community in Stewarton, and you know that's one thing that's been said for a number of years in terms of infrastructure and schools. But all we can do, you know, we can just try and do the best that we can. Some of the pressures in terms of contract inflation and all the rest that are just out of control in terms of the money that we're getting, but we will do our best to get the most modern facilities that we can and continue to invest in schools right across the board in Alnwick and places that we're growing. And I think we need to have those conversations with the planners when they're doing the next LDP in terms of maximising the money that we can get from developers for this purpose. Linda, sorry.
Thanks, Leader. Simon, can I just ask you, with reference to paragraphs 81 and 82, I see you've said that there's discussions ongoing with a developer for a drainage solution at Merlin Park. I've been asked by several people on several occasions if there is any update or any kind of timescale when they're likely to get some movement on it.
Thanks, through you, Chair. We've had a number of meetings with the developer now, most recently last week, had very positive discussions. The developer is keen to assist us where he can in terms of delivering a drainage solution as part of a Section 75 obligation that he has. So we've taken away a number of actions from that meeting last week to expedite matters and push things forward. I couldn't give you definitive timescales just now, but I could reassure you that there are positive ongoing discussions to try and get a resolution to this as quickly as possible.
Barry.
Thank you, Leader. Just one further point in relation to Kilmarnock Bus Station. This is maybe one where Jane could come in terms of the cleaning schedule that's been long promised and proposed in terms of the bus station now that it's completed. We just get an update on where we're at with that, please.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, the contractor's been appointed now and with the scheduled start date of the 17th of March.
St Patrick's Day, is that right? Anyway, okay, anybody else? Oh, sorry, Drew.
Thanks, Chair. Just to thank Simon and Andrew last week for giving the local members an update on the Doon campus. As Barry says there, the community does need a bit of certainty, but I think that what Simon that's got in place, and Andrew, with the consultation starting next week at the Melton Community Council, will give that bit of certainty to the community. It's great to see we've got extra money there now as well, take us up to 33.5 million, just to give us I think some that we're looking for more a new school. Again, it's not a new school, but by the time that 33.5 million will go a long way, I think, and give that certainty to the community. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Ruth. John McFadden.
Yes, thank you, Leader. A question for Simon and possibly Jane. I'm not sure who would answer it. So over 7 years ago now, you know, the 4 ward councillors in Ward 1 asked for some work to be, you know, scoped out on the road between Stewart and Fenwick, and the money was put there and the funding was basically put in place for a design feasibility study and a costing. I've spoken to various, you know, heads of roads as they've come and gone, and the 4 ward councillors were talking about it a few weeks ago there. We never ever had the document that was planned, supposed to be created, or unless we've missed it somewhere along the line. But, you know, the whole idea was to just come up with a possible design and possible costs to upgrade the road between Stewart and Fenwick, so, you know, funding can be chased and whatnot. But the project really doesn't seem to have gone anywhere in 7 years, and I wonder whether I could have any comment on that and what might be done with it. And has the planning been created? Has the costing been done? Be interested to know. Thanks.
Jane.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McFadden. Barry, our traffic team leader's with me, and he's just confirmed that yes, there are proposals now, and a councillor briefing will come out in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Anyone else? Okay, can I go to the recommendations? Agreed to recommend to council the Roman numerals 1 to 14. Okay, can we agree that? Okay, thanks. That's that. So that's the end of the E items. Give the education spokesperson a couple of minutes just to leave. Okay, on to final item, which is the East Ayrshire Health and Social Care Partnership Social Care Contribution and Charging Framework and approved charges for 25-26. And Fiona Hart is going to get some. Fiona.
Thanks, Chair. So this report's presented annually and it's in respect to the social care uplift. And in terms of delegation, the Council's got responsibility for setting the charges in the IJB for approving the provider rates. The rates will be presented to the IJB on the 19th of March. So this report seeks approval of social care charges, and these are driven by the updating of national guidance. It details the inflationary adjustments to the framework and seeks approval to increase thresholds for income disregards. Charging and rates are reviewed annually and takes account of revised guidance for COSLA, the DWP and the Scottish Government. The key contribution and charging framework are in paragraphs 11 to 33, and the full framework's in Appendix 2. In respect to the calculation of annual budgets, the weekly indicative income home care hourly rate is currently £22, and this takes account of national guidance in relation to the adult social care pay uplift. The rate for 25-26 is under review, and that will be uplifted following guidance and will be presented to the IJB for approval. There's reference to the recommendation by the independent review of adult social care and the commitment by the Scottish Government and COSLA to remove non-residential charges. That's been paused nationally, and that's due to the financial challenges. There's still the commitment to remove charging in the future. Non-residential charges and thresholds are in paragraphs 25 to 33, and the proposals to increase the framework for the means tested maximum charge to £129.90 per week. Threshold levels and calculation of tariff income increase in line with DWP benefits and COSLA guidance. The thresholds are based on minimum benefits, and there's an additional 25% buffer on top of that. Table 1 sets out the increased thresholds. If an individual's got income below the threshold, there'll be no contribution other than the flat rate charges. And to account for disability-related expenditure, the Council also sets a rate of disregarded income above the thresholds, and it's proposed that that's maintained at 40%, meaning the individual will be charged up to 60% of their income over the threshold. And in Appendix 1, that details benefit levels and thresholds. Importantly, the last column shows the income an individual would be left with, and that's after taking account of housing costs. Table 2 at paragraph 30 is the proposed rates for flat rate charges. Blue badges would remain at the maximum charge of £20. Daycare charges £4. Community alarm £5.22. Access to funds and DWP appointeeship would increase to £5.50 and £3.30, and that would be dependent on whether we're in the community or in a care home. Paragraphs 31 and 32 provides uprated indicative unit costs in relation to costing annual self-directed support budgets. In paragraph 33, the subsidy for community meals is currently £1.02, and it's proposed that it continues at the same level. Paragraphs 34 to 36 indicate that what's currently ongoing in relation to the social care uplifts, and a number of factors will inform that proposal. Agreements still to be reached in respect to care homes, and the starting points, the cost model assumptions and the annual social care pay uplift for providing direct care. There's also additional cost pressures in areas of dispute in relation to increased costs, including energy and insurance. It's hoped that the National Care Home contract can be agreed prior to the 31st of March, but there's no certainty of that at this stage. The financial implications are in paragraph 39 to 41 and risk implications in 44 to 47. And the uncertainty around the care home fees represents a financial risk, as these placements are all procured for external providers. And just to conclude, agreements requested in respect to the recommendations in paragraph 2. Happy for questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Fiona. Any questions for Fiona? Linda?
Thanks, Leader. It's just clarification. The bottom of page 93, table 2, says the community alarm weekly charge is £4.74, rising to £5.22. Then in paragraph 32, it's talking about the weekly cost of providing it is £8.53, rising to £9.38. Now, apologies if it's two different things, but I'm just looking for some clarity to what the two amounts actually are.
Oh yes, that is two different things. So that the table was a charge to an individual for the community alarm, and the other is the cost for providing that service, the indicative cost for providing that service. So we need those costs for costing an individual's personal budget.
Okay, anyone else? Right, can we go to the recommendations on page 89, paragraph 2, can we agree with those recommendations? Okay, that concludes the business for today's Cabinet room. See you all tomorrow, not sooner. Take it now.
Councillor McFadden.